Hello everyone, welcome to Winthrop in the World. I'm Paul Baskin, and with us today is Mahesh Daas. Mahesh Daas is the president and professor at Boston Agricultural College. And Professor Daas, President Daas, is also an expert in geothermal energy, which is why he's visiting us today to help us understand a little bit about geothermal energy, because it's a big issue in Winthrop right now, because we're building a new fire station in town. Our natural gas pipelines are in deteriorating shape, and there's a lot of talk about whether some of these problems could be solved through geothermal. So welcome, Professor. I'm wondering if you might be able to give us a little history on how you got to Boston Architectural College and why geothermal energy.
Yeah, Paul, first, thank you so much for having me here. It's wonderful to visit Winthrop always. Mm-hmm. I enjoy, getting to Winthrop and the character and the ambience and the spirit of Winthrop. So it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me.
What's your history with the town, briefly?
Well, I think I have visited it on a few occasions. One of our alumni, famous alumni, lives here in the community, Frank Costantino. And many of the viewers might know Frank. He's a great artist, watercolorist, and well-known all over the world for architectural illustration. So sometimes I get to visit him, and at other time, my son actually took his SAT at the high school here.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, so I think I could say I have been here a few times and enjoyed the place.
Terrific. So geothermal energy, that's is it a big focus for you, or among other things, or what? And more importantly, what should people in Winthrop know as they consider that as a potentially a serious option for them, both in the fire station and more broadly in the town?
Yeah, first of all, I must say, if anything, I am more an expert of commissioning the geothermal energy for the Boston Architectural College. Not necessarily, first of all, I'm trained in architecture, urban design, and higher education management.
Okay.
My scholarship is broad-based, is usually focused on design computation, robotics, artificial intelligence, sustainability, and leadership. Those are the areas of my expertise.
Okay.
And my interest, and of course, I'm also a contributor on NPR's GBH station on the Culture Show once a month.
Right, okay.
And most recently, I have discussed the topic about artificial intelligence, its energy hunger,
right,
and what kind of a pressure it puts on the already struggling infrastructure of the energy industry and the utilities in our communities, not just in any one locale, but all over the country and perhaps all over the world. So in that context, the question of energy assumes even greater importance. When we, recently I was at the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, where I'm part of one of the groups that talks about energy. And we discussed, what can we look at, what's on the horizon, what is currently in demand and all that. So that's the context. And the Boston Architectural College has been in the news because it has been leading the way in commissioning geothermal.
Okay.
In terms of particularly in dense urban areas where you can retrofit the geothermal. And I will explain what it is.
Right. That's we should tell people it's pipes into the ground somehow.
Yeah, I will explain it fully about what it is. So somebody who doesn't know anything about geothermal, I'm pretty sure will get a reasonable idea and then can look up what to look up and what questions to ask and things like that. So first of all, geothermal. First, let's talk about maybe what is geothermal. And I'm interested really in being able to understand more complex things and be able to explain in simpler things. As a professor, that is my role. And as a cultural commentator, I try to simplify things in ways everybody can understand. So geothermal is really tapping a couple of things. Tapping the constant temperature if you go below the ground sufficiently.
Okay.
At the Boston Architectural College.
In the Back Bay.
In the Back Bay. In Back Bay, we have been there for a very long time. I mean, first of all, BAC is a Bostonian institution for 136 years.
Okay.
And in the Back Bay for the last 60 years, in the few buildings we have on the campus there, historic buildings. It's also obviously a very dense and complex urban situation, right? So what we did, not now, but 12 years ago, what we did was to really install 8 geothermal wells.
Okay.
And what it is geothermal wells maybe would be about 18, 24 inches, if you will, in diameter. And you go down 1,500 feet in that area.
So you're saying valves, but they're pipes, what people think of as pipes, right?
Yeah, it's more of a well with a pipe that goes in, comes out.
Okay.
So you can tap the constant temperature below ground.
Okay.
The way it works is, it is around 55 degrees underground all the time.
All the time, yep.
And if it is very hot, let's say during summer,
Yeah.
then basically you take the heat and then sink it in the ground. And as it comes up, it cools down to 55 degrees, comes to the heat pump. So the heat pumps are the ones that convert this kind of energy. And in winter, when it is cold outside, it is still 55 degrees down below the ground. So it goes down below ground and comes up, warms up.
Right.
So you use that heat, and so that is how the engine of geothermal energy works.
Right.
Now, it is used mostly in a couple of different ways. You could use it to provide heat and cooling.
Right.
In certain areas where some geological activity, where you have high temperatures below ground to tap into, like in Iceland, would be a very good way to understand.
Right.
Then you can actually use that heat to run steam turbines to produce electricity.
Okay.
But that's not what we are doing here.
Right.
What we are doing is utilizing that constant temperature below ground. The best way to think about it is like a battery just below, straight below our feet.
Right.
We are standing on it all the time.
And in big picture, I hear it's more expensive than a regular heating system to install, but then is more beneficial in terms of cost in the long run. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Yeah, that's where I think we can now begin to. I mean, the cost factor is always relative, right? But before we get into that, I might talk about what is the significance of geothermal in terms of renewable energy sources and where it stands. So that way we can kind of compare, mix and match these things. Now, geothermal is more suitable in certain areas than other areas. Right. And that is where some studies need to be done and some test wells need to be dug, and they need to drill to find out and see if it is suitable or not. Right. And the second thing is the upfront capital expenditures are very high for geothermal. Right. However, over a long period of time, it is the most reliable. Right. In fact, it is most reliable after just next to nuclear energy, where both of those are at 90% of capacity. So they can provide continuous energy at 90% level. Right. Whereas if you go to solar, it is at 15%. Yeah. If you go to wind, it is at 30 to 45%.
So you said you did it 12 years ago at your campus in Boston. Have you broken even in any sense financially?
Yeah, so we installed the wells, however, and this is where the capital expenditures come into play. Okay. It requires that you upgrade the equipment because our building was a 60-year-old building. Okay. And that means you had to completely revamp the old pneumatic HVAC systems. Right. And that is what we are doing right now.
I see.
Is to now begin to take that forward. But that's the advantage of it. See, we did the most the expensive thing, which is to drill them and have them ready. Right. We can utilize them anytime we want.
Right. So a lot of questions. One is you talked about the fact that it depends the geography of where you are. Right. To the degree you know about Winthrop's geography, which is basically a sandbar, I believe, but I guess the Back Bay is all fill as well. Yeah. Does it seem just from your impressions of the town of Winthrop as you know it that this could be a viable candidate for this kind of technology?
I don't know. And see, I'm not a geologist or an engineer dealing with these issues. However, all I can say is definitely geothermal can play a role in terms of how much, at what cost. Those are the kinds of things that need to be done in a feasibility study.
Right.
But I can tell you from just simply reading up a little bit about the city and the geography here, it seems to be a feasible region where you can actually ask the question, is this viable for our community?
So it's at least worth asking the question. Okay, then in the case at least of the fire station, where the voters just approved, like in the past few months, a plan for a $38.5 million fire station. I believe that's the number. People want to get it done quickly, of course, because we have deteriorating stations. I guess what I'm getting at is that too much to expect that could happen in that kind of a time frame where people are kind of trying to hurry along and stay within a capital budget line?
So Paul, I think that goes back to your previous question, which is the capital expenditure that it requires upfront. So let's talk about, unpack it a little bit, because that's important to do so. So let's just talk about, let's say if you want wind power.
Okay.
What you need to do is to install a windmill, and then you have to install a way of capturing that energy or putting it into the grid, right? So that is the kind of a expenditure that it involves. And if you want solar, you got to have a large area where you can have either PV or solar thermal, right? So you have hot water coming from solar heating or electricity it produces, and then where you store it. Those are the kinds of expenditures. I'm just putting it in a very simple term here. If you take hydroelectric, you got to have huge reservoir of water that is running the turbines, right? And you got to have supply of water constantly.
Right.
If you want nuclear, it is enormous upfront expenditure too, right? But there are different expenditures in terms of where you want to get started. With geothermal, what happens is, now you can do geothermal for your home. Yeah. That is one way to look at it.
That's a very expensive option to do it individually.
It is. Right? It depends on the expense and how you want to amortize it over a period of time and things like that. Yes, that is definitely an option. You got to invest in certain equipment upgrades and all that. But if you look at the example of Framingham, where Eversource has done a very interesting project.
Just so people know, there's a few places in Massachusetts where have tested this out, and Framingham you're referring to as one of the main ones. Yes.
Well, Framingham actually has already been commissioned. So with Framingham, it's been about a 4-year project. Okay. And what they have done is actually to take a large area of the city sort of block, an urban area, and they have had a connected, networked geothermal system, which is actually an infrastructure level system. Meaning that just like you have a power grid, you got the power coming into the community through the power lines, and you got the poles and substations and all that. There, they actually did an entire infrastructure.
For a neighbor, you're talking, so the difference
we are talking about a neighborhood scale. So we many houses, if in fact a fire station and a school, or many other elements in the community are powered by that. Right. And that is a good demonstration project. It's been a highly successful project, and that would be an example to look to for the city of Winthrop, if it wants to look at it as a way to think of long-term energy strategy. So
I guess a lot of things again, but so on the idea of trying to do this in time for something like the fire station project that's just coming up, does that, I think I'm hearing you maybe suggest that might be a bit ambitious to try and do it that quickly in a thing, but that it's a good idea maybe for a longer term project? Is that kind of your
There are two approaches. I would say there are two options to consider. One option is, because the project has already been in motion and perhaps already ready to break ground and all that, it would then be thinking about it as a retrofit project like we did at Boston Architectural College, so that the building's construction and all that can proceed. Right. And they might have made some investments, obviously in the HVAC equipment and all that. And at some point, they could consider geothermal as part of a larger system
So
that they can tap into.
So you would maybe build the fire station in a way that you could adapt it later to geothermal, maybe, but maybe installing the whole geothermal system from the start might be too much to expect.
Because it does require quite a bit of planning, exploration, and both capital expenditure as well as engineering feasibility and all of that. So it does require lead time.
And does it require, with the idea of building the fire station to adapt it to geothermal later, would that add a lot of money to the cost of the construction right now?
Without a doubt.
Okay. Well, that could be a hurdle, right?
Yes. I think it is a question of how do you amortize that cost over a long period of time.
Right.
And if it is in the planning stage of a building or a complex or a neighborhood, you could roll that into the whole financing part of it.
Right.
But otherwise, it does add, without a doubt, a heavy layer of capital expenditure.
So the town has committed to the taxpayers of Winthrop that they will spend no more than $38.5 million on this project.
I see.
Is there a way that they could get a partner that would do that amortizing so that in terms of the upfront cost to the taxpayers, it would still be within that amount, but still have the potential, and then have a, maybe, I don't know, if there would be a shared ownership of the power or something? Is there any?
I don't know. I cannot answer that question. I think all I can say is the utility company, the Eversource and National Grid, would be the first people to go to and explore, can we do something like what we did in Framingham, what they did in Framingham.
Yeah, I see.
Framingham example, I think, is a good one at a neighborhood scale.
Yeah,
The
okay.
BSE example is a
Your
good
college.
one at a building or a micro-district scale, meaning a small block.
At a one building, yeah.
One building or a few building scale.
Right, or small, yes. Couple, more to ask you. One is that the fire station, well, the whole town for that matter, is on the oceans. And there was one, and the fire station is not terribly far away. Pretty much nothing is. So one thought was to run pipes out to the ocean and somehow do a geothermal that takes advantage of the ocean. Is that?
So this is where there are a few ways of doing geothermal, and I will explain those ways of it very simply. One is you go deep.
Yeah.
The other is you go horizontal,
Right.
depending on the availability of the land and the neighborhood and the urban district and all that. The other one is to run into a lake or a pond or a water source,
Okay.
where again you use the same temperature principle.
Yeah.
So it depends on what seems to be more feasible or more viable.
Right.
Those are the engineering studies that need to be done.
Okay. And is there, how long would
But
that?
they're possible. So
Yeah. But again, the time frame or something like that would be probably.
it will be, I would imagine, in the magnitude of a year or longer
Yeah.
of planning something like that.
Okay. Help us understand then, well, first of all, I mean, yes, I understand why it would be cheaper to have geothermal and have the pipes down there, but part of the problem we're having in town is our gas pipes are deteriorating. So pipes underground just deteriorate. And if you had a geothermal system, maybe, yes, it wouldn't deteriorate as quickly as pipes above ground or things above ground, but once they do, isn't the cost then of getting down there and repairing them a lot more expensive?
My understanding is, as again, somebody who is trained in design and city design and things like that, the technologies of geothermal are among the most reliable technologies for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
Partly because once you install them, there are not many moving parts below ground.
Yeah.
Unless there is seismic activity,
Okay.
which can be a problem,
Right.
or there are a few other factors that, but those are done during feasibility stage about how feasible or what are the risks. But otherwise, once installed, they are known to run for decades and decades and decades without having to do anything with that infrastructure.
Yeah.
The in terms of the machinery in the buildings and all that, those will obviously require maintenance or replacement as needed, like anything else.
Yeah.
But that's how we are approaching at the BSC,
Right.
is and that's why even though we installed them now 12, 13 years ago, we can now hook them up.
Right.
And we now just need new equipment in the building,
Right.
the mechanical systems that can be upgraded, and that is what we do.
Just briefly, since you mentioned seismic activity, we do have small earthquakes around here, and we've had some not too far ago. That didn't do anything to your system, I take it.
I suppose we did our studies,
Yeah.
and we also did environmental impact studies.
Right.
So all those are required part of doing any of this. So I would say those are kind of standardized processes.
Right.
Once the project is, initiated in terms of feasibility, all of those will come into play. I think my advice really simply would be for the community to come together and the leadership to come together and say, let's explore it at least.
Yeah.
We don't have to commit to it.
Right.
And see if this is the right kind of a solution for our community at this point of time. If not, it is not, but it is definitely worth exploring.
But the main question right now to consider as the station is being planned and built would be whether to include in the design the capability for that expansion later, I guess, to basically make that kind of that much of an investment.
Yeah, again, not knowing anything about the project or anything at all, usually, typically, in a kind of a project timeline, if the project is ready to break ground and all that, that means all the design work has been done.
The design is, I think the design, my understanding at least, is the design is still in play. It's still, right now they're just tearing down the old building at the site. There has not been any shovels in the ground yet.
Okay.
And I understand that there's still time to redo the plan at least. Okay. Well, just as far as your own experience then at Boston Agricultural College, is it fair to ask why, or if and why you haven't expanded it yourselves if it's working so well? I mean, I assume you have other buildings on campus that are not.
No. I mean, this is actually to power the whole micro district. So
your entire campus.
It is the cost of, again, goes to the capital expenditures.
Yeah.
It is a cost of having to upgrade our mechanical systems.
Right.
That was this stumbling block when otherwise we could have done it more than a decade ago.
So you put the pipes in the ground 12 years ago, but it hasn't been fully running all this time?
Correct. They're there. And it's like a battery ready to operate.
I see.
And that was because it was funded by the Department of Energy
Federal.
and the city and various sources of grants and all that, as well as utilities were involved.
Well, that's another thing I want to get into is the whole question of grants. Now, the town right now has maybe a strained relation with the state over the housing law known as 3A. That's one issue. But I guess more of the money comes on the federal level. Is that true?
At this point of time, we don't know.
We don't. Well,
I would say that simply again, that is a question for the team to ask and say, what are the sources of funding at this point of time, looking ahead,
right,
and look at the feasibility of it.
But based on your experience, if the town were to try to go ahead with this, just in the roughest numbers, would you say would be the percentages that the town would fund, the state would fund, the federal?
I couldn't answer that question.
Even roughly, like you think is it mostly town money that you think probably?
Again, it is such these are complex infrastructure projects. That means how you piece together funding, it entirely depends on the circumstances and the availability and timeliness of certain funds. For example, a major grant program the federal government may have had might not be available anymore.
Yeah.
And if so, you need to look to other sources. Yeah.
Right.
So,
although we've heard, correctly or not, that out of all the things that the federal government, the current administration, has been eliminating and keeping, geothermal is one that it seems to be more favorable toward. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding, but again, that might change any time. We don't know.
No, I guess, okay, that's fine. What about, so you wrote a book about AI and its implications, is that maybe fair to say?
Yes.
And then you've written several books, but that's the most recent one, I gather,
yes.
right? And that's sort of, like you explained at the beginning, is sort of what led you into the whole issue of why we need a lot more energy in places where we're hearing a lot about this talk. These AI computer plants have great electricity demands, and therefore there has to be a new way of solving that.
Yes.
Does it open the possibility, again, Winthrop is a small town, maybe there's not room for industry, but maybe for something like this? I mean, does it at least raise the possibility if the town were to go heavy into something like geothermal, it would create additional opportunities for an industry like this in town somewhere?
Yeah, I think it is any kind of new energy infrastructure does come with it some economic development opportunity, is how I would frame it.
Yeah.
And it depends on the geography and the situation, the economy of the region. Now, with AI, what we are talking about is really the data centers.
Yeah.
Data centers are both necessary but notorious for the AI infrastructure.
Yeah.
Data centers are the most energy guzzling kinds of centers that we have seen in a very long time.
Right.
So much that in the city of Santa Clara, California, 60% of the city's electricity is consumed by the data center there.
60% of the whole town's.
60%, and by 2030, it is projected that data centers in the world will consume as much as the country of Japan is consuming right now with the entire country's current usage.
Right.
That is how much it is.
Okay, so there's that issue, which is a big one, but there's also, I understand these data centers physically take up a lot of space too. Is that correct, or do you, because Winthrop doesn't have a lot of space? I'm just looking at
Yeah, Winthrop, I would definitely, yeah, I would agree that seeing the geography of Winthrop, that might be not necessarily the source of it.
you can't stack them.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, see, I was born and brought up in India, and Google is doing a big data center there.
Yeah.
It is like $15-17 billion data center.
Yeah.
Because access to water
Right.
and access to electricity are the energy are the two important things for a data center.
Right.
Now, that's only pertinent in terms of not even if you don't have any data center anywhere in your city in the vicinity, it can be far away, but the energy that it needs will impact the entire region.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is why I think communities investing in certain reliable infrastructure in their community would benefit a lot from withstanding any fluctuations and any kinds of demands and overloads of energy from that kind of a data center landscape.
Yeah, okay. Well, Professor Daas, we're getting toward the end, but one other thing I want to ask you about, which is that you have something at your campus called a green alley.
Yes.
Maybe you could explain what a green alley is, and is it something that we should think about here?
Oh, I think the context of, first of all, yes, green alleys are useful anywhere, but let me explain what it was. So green alley is to do with the nature of the landscape in Back Bay.
Okay.
As you know, Back Bay is basically reclaimed land, right?
Right.
I mean, you're filled up and then you are on wooden piles, right? The whole thing is floating on wooden piles. And the wooden piles constantly need to be submerged in water so that they don't rot. That is a requirement for it. If they begin to rot, it becomes problematic.
Right, right.
So the stratum of water that needs to be there is depleted over a period of time unless you are actually charging it.
Okay.
So you need to capture all the rainwater you can and channel it there rather than into the Charles River.
Okay.
Right. So the Green Alley was a demonstration project again,
Right.
where we created a permeable alleyway
Right.
and making sure that all the rainwater that is captured is channeled into the subterranean water table
Yeah.
that maintains a certain level. In fact, they monitor it
Right.
constantly.
Okay.
So it's a contribution to it. And I think it is pertinent anywhere you have a situation like that.
So does that, I mean, here in Winthrop, we have issues obviously with flooding. It's a big issue.
Yeah,
Is that the
absolutely.
kind of thing, I mean, maybe I don't know about the pilings issue that you're
Yeah.
talking about in buildings, but
Yeah.
but just for the purposes of,
Yeah.
of sort of dealing with the flooding issue, is that a technology that would have any applicability?
And I think I was just looking at the Winthrop's climate action plan as I was just preparing for our conversation, Paul. And I think the action plan seems to be pretty comprehensive in what they're considering.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, this would be one element of many things in terms of coastal resilience and flooding and all those threats that face this particular community more than coastal community, more than anything inland. So I would say it is definitely a good thing to do when you are working with how do you work with water. Right now, for example, the BAC is hosting an exhibition of landscape architect, a Chinese landscape architect who has done more than 1,000 projects all over the world and not just in China, in many continents. And one of the central principles that Kongjian Yu talks about is you need to work with water.
Yeah.
You cannot just simply say we don't want water. You need to work with water as an integral element. And that is why on the culture show earlier this month, I said You got to bring together the earth, water, air, fire, and space in a way that they talk to each other, balance each other, and they're permeable and all that. If you don't, then what it does is it creates a flooding hazard,
Right.
And many other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just leave the green alley. What does it look like? I mean, does it mean you're the roads that people drive on, or is it the what,
Both.
It's both.
Both,
Oh, it's
actually.
a sidewalk.
Yeah,
So just
it's the whole construction is permeable
I see. Okay.
in a way that it actually takes rainwater down straight into the water table.
Right. And is it an expensive thing to do?
Not necessarily. I think no, I would say it is not the question of cost. In that case, it is not necessarily capital expenditure, but rather prudently channeling expenditure you might have already budgeted into this. It is a question of design more than cost.
Right. Well, there's so many more things we could talk about. This has been wonderful. I'm really grateful to you for coming to Winthrop and explaining this to folks. Again, our guest has been Mahesh Daas, President and Professor at the Boston Architectural College. Thank you very much for your time.
Paul, a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad that me or the Boston Architectural College can be a resource for the community. We are happy to be a resource anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.